بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to raise the status of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to grant us sincere and noble intentions. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to continue in our new book, Haqa'iq an Tasawwuf, which is realities of Sufism, or we can say realities about Sufism. And as I mentioned to you, and I keep mentioning to you, because it's extremely important, we have to learn Islam in the proper, balanced manner. In the proper, balanced manner. Extremely important. So with that being said, we're going to have to be patient on the journey of seeking knowledge. And we're going to have to be humble enough to realize we are missing some things, and diligent enough to acquire those things that we are missing. We cannot remain in a position where I don't know and I'm satisfied with not knowing. No. I don't know and I must learn. And we have an entire mission once we learn, or even while we're learning. We have a mission. Because while we are learning, there are many, many, many people who still don't know and need to learn. So we have to learn and convey. We have to teach. We have to share. We have to encourage. At the same time, we're learning, right? So learning is just one part of it. We actually have to do something with that knowledge. And as the last three in our 3, 4, 5, 3 is ilm, al-amal, wa da'wah. We have to learn, we have to practice, and then we have to spread the knowledge. We have to convey. We have to give a da'wah. You cannot just say, I learned and that's it. No. I learned, I practice, and I convey. So now we're in the stage of at-talab. We're learning and we're seeking. And even now that we just finished with Sheikh Samir, I'm sitting around and still reviewing and doing what I have to do. And I'm saying to myself, did we maximize the time we had with him? Did we really benefit? Do we really understand? Did we memorize? Did we preserve? Can we convey accurately? Did we do our job? He conveyed, he came, he taught us, we learned. Do we actually know what we studied? Can we convey it? Did we memorize it? Are we ready to seek more details? Did we review properly? Yeah, this is the stage we're in now, right? It's not sufficient that I came and sat with the sheikh. Now, what are you doing with it? Did you take it to heart? Did you really benefit? Did you really understand? Was it more than the feel good moment? We have to ask ourselves these questions, and we have to continue, because we have generations to convey the knowledge to. So we're going to read quickly the dedication again, right? Please, may Allah give your mother well-being, inshallah, and give you patience. Now, go ahead, read it. To the esteemed guide in the first page. The first, not page, but you know.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. To the esteemed guide, the spiritual trainer of the aspirants, and the guide of the wayfarers, my liege lord and teacher, Muhammad al-Hashimi, rahimahullah, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him. And to that believing group who loved each other for Allah Ta'ala's sake, without there being any ties of kinship between them or wealth exchanging hands. They do not fear when the people are afraid, nor do they fall into sadness when the people are sad. They are the friends of Allah Ta'ala in truth. Abdul Qadir Isa.
The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentioned his spiritual guide and teacher, Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi. And he dedicated this book to him and to the awliya of Allah, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about them, Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. That the awliya, they shall have no fear, nor shall they grieve. May Allah make us among those pious people. So quickly, we want to read in our book, Reliance of the Traveler, on page 1077. We want to read about Sheikh Muhammad Hashimi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So we're on X 258.
Sheikh Muhammad Hashimi is Muhammad ibn Ahmed ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Abu Jama' al-Hashimi, born in Sabta near Telsim, Algeria in 1928-1880. He was a
in Algeria. This city is a famous city full of scholars. So mark the date. He is in the end of the 13th century Hijra.
He was a Sufi, Maliki scholar, author and tenets of Islamic faith, and the successor in the east of Sheikh Ahmed al-Alawi.
So you'll notice the three sciences were combined with Sheikh al-Hashimi, rahimahullah ta'ala. The science of at-tasawwuf, so he followed, which is represented by al-ihsan in the hadith of Jibreel. He was Maliki in fiqh, which is represented al-Islam in the hadith of Jibreel. And he was Ash'ari in Aqidah, which represents Al-Iman in the Hadith of Jibreel. So, as was the case of our traditional scholars who are Sunni, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they followed either the Ash'ari or Maturidi school in Al-Fiqh, which he happened to be Ash'ari, and in Al-Aqidah, excuse me, they were Ash'ari or Maturidi in Aqidah, which is the science of Al-Iman. He was Ash'ari. They were Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, or Hanbali in Al-Fiqh, which is the science of Al-Islam. He was Maliki. And they were Sufi in their terms of their suluk, their spiritual wayfaring, following various turuk. He particularly followed the Shadhili tariqah.
Educated in Algeria before immigrating with his Sheikh Muhammad ibn Yalis to Damascus, he completed his studies in Syria with a number of the sheikhs of his time, among them Badr ad-Din al-Hassani.
I need you to highlight, write that name, memorize that name, preserve that name. Among the teachers, and this is very important, and main teachers of Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi was the great muhaddith, scholar of hadith, and jurist, al-Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Badruddin al-Hassani was the scholar of hadith of the Sham areas in his time. The people of Damascus and all of the Sham areas, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, as well as Syria, they all, in the knowledge of hadith and even in affiliation through chains of narration, relate themselves to Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani. So Badruddin al-Hassani, he died in the mid 14th century, 1345 or 1354, one of those. I'll double check for you the exact date. And Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani is the sheikh of our sheikh's sheikh. So our sheikhs, their sheikhs, were the students of Badruddin al-Hassani. So between us and Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani is two links. That's it. Two people. Our teachers, their teachers, then Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani. And he was known as the Muhaddith of Ash-Sham, right? Keep that name. Because in every era, there were notable scholars in different areas. And when you get to know the great scholars of the different areas and the chains of narration connected them, you're going to know something. So that's Sheikh Badruddin al-Hassani. And Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi was his student.
Muhammad Jafar al-Khatani
Muhammad Jafar al-Kattani was also a great scholar of hadith. And he was among the teachers of Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi.
Tawfiq al-Ayyubi, and others. Ibn Yadis authorized him to give the general litany al-Wird al-Am of the tariqah to those who wanted it, but it was not until after Ibn Yadis' death that the great renewer of the Shadili tariqah, Sheikh Ahmed al-Alawi, who had had the same sheikh as Ibn Yadis' teacher, came to Damascus on his way to Hajj in 1350, 1931, and authorized Hashimi as a sheikh in the orders Alawi Darqawi branch that he had founded, giving him full authority.
You have al-Wird al-Am, we could just say al-Wird, right? Right? A Wird is a set of remembrances and supplications and Quranic verses that the spiritual guide would give to the disciple to recite daily. That's called a weird, right? So you have two things in tasawwuf. You have what is called al-murshid, right? And al-murid. Just for terminology. Al-murshid is a spiritual guide. That is the sheikh who is guiding, literally taking the disciple or the seeker by the hand on their spiritual journey. Al-murid is the disciple, the one who is traveling the path. So you have al-murshid and al-murid. The murshid, you can say a sheikh al-murshid, the sheikh who is a spiritual guide, because not every sheikh is a murshid, right? A murabbi, in terms of tasawwuf, in terms of spirituality. So that is the term. The murshid or the sheikh would give the murid a weird, a series of things to say, usually morning and evening. And in every spiritual path, there is a general weird that is given to everyone who travels the path. Now, when one travels that path, that sheikh may give that student, depending, or that disciple, depending on what that sheikh sees that that particular person needs, he may give them a specific weird or some specific adhkar or some specific acts to do for that person specifically. But then there is the general weird. Usually in every tariqah, the general weird consists of making abundant La ilaha illallah, abundant istighfar, seeking forgiveness of Allah, and abundant salah ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, salutation of the Prophet. In general, that weird is consistent through all the spiritual paths, which we call a turuk. So we say a turuk, Sufiya. At the outset, I should say this. I warn you, just listening to me, don't go run talking about I need a sheikh and a spiritual tariqah. Learn first. All right? That's my warning from the outset. I know many of us put the cart before the horse. Uh-oh, I'm going to get me a murshid and I'm going to join this tariqah and don't know anything. Knowledge before practice, right? Or speaking. Al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. Learn first before you do anything, before you speak. Don't go just jumping, joining because you found someone and you like what they look like. Go learn first. In the tasawwuf, in the name of tasawwuf, there are a lot of swindlers, a lot of imposters, a lot of charlatans. So don't go rushing. Is that point clear? Learn first. I'm never going to ask you to join anything. I'm asking you to learn. Then once you learn, you will know what you should join and what you should not join. But do not do anything without learning first. Is this clear? Please, please make sure you understand me. I don't want to be responsible for your destruction. What you're going to learn here is the general foundational outline of tasawwuf. Once you learn that, in addition to the other things we're learning, you will have the tools to distinguish between someone who is upright and truthful and someone who is a charlatan and full of crap. But if you don't learn, you will be a victim and you will get your spiritual heart broken. So I'm warning you, don't do it. Okay, go ahead.
Giving him full authority in all aspects of the way, including the solitary retreat, halwa, that Al-Adawi emphasized.
So
Hashimi,
khalwa is spiritual seclusion, where the sheikh would have the disciple isolate himself from people and engaging in acts of worship, remembering Allah for a specific period of time to train their ego and lower self. So it is a part of spiritual training.
Hashimi's spiritual presence, humility, and ability to guide seekers to the truth gained him many disciples, and whoever sought Allah Ta'ala did not go away disappointed. He taught
In fact,
Islam.
in Syria, he is one of the most famous and well-known scholars of the spiritual path. There were others, of course, there are others. But he touched in the Sham areas many people. Rahimahullah ta'ala.
He taught Islam at all levels, in classes at his home and in mosque, and would not permit disciples' ignorance in Islamic law or tenets of faith, the latter of which he taught from traditional Ash'ari classics and his own Miftah al-Jannah fi Sharh Aqidah Ahl Sunnah.
Here, a very important point. You'll notice the Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi, rahimahullah, he taught Islam at all levels. Number 3 was his thing, a da'wah. Ilm, amal, wa da'wah, that's the path of the people of Allah. But a da'wah and teaching and tadris and ta'aleem, look, in his house, in mosque, in masajid, wherever there was an ability to, even in shops, they used to teach people. They would go to people's homes. They would do it in their own homes. They would go to the marketplace, in different shops, in the masjids. They were teaching the people. And a very important thing that he mentioned, he would not permit the murid, his murids, those spiritual disciples, students under him, ignorance in the sacred law, in al-fiqh, or in tenets of faith, in al-aqidah. In his way, there is no spiritual wayfaring without sound worship and sound tenets of faith. Absolutely not. He wouldn't accept that you're ignorant of the sacred law or what you're supposed to believe as a Muslim, and your beliefs are not consistent with Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And even though he wrote much, he wrote much in the field of tasawwuf. His works are filled with learning al-aqidatu sahiha, the correct belief according to the school of Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari. And among his books is this work, which the author mentioned, Miftahul Jannah, fi sharhi aqidati ahli sunnati wal jama'ah. This is his book. It's available. It's a new print. We used to have like handwritten copies, and they recently printed it in a beautiful new modern print. This is his book. And this is all in the creed of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah according to the school of Al Ash'ari. This is so it's not available in English. We need a lot of translations. But this is the book in Arabic. So for those who can see it, مفتاح الجنة في شرح عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة Muhammad ibn al-Hashmi al-Tilmisani. So if one want to know the issues of the creed, and we've been reading this and studying this book for years, this is it, mashallah. So that was an emphasis of the Sheikh, to have the correct belief. So when we talk about Aqidah, our transmission of that is from the likes of these great scholars. And that's why one after one after one after one, we keep saying this is the tradition of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Ash'ari, Maliki, Sufi, Maturidi, Hanafi, Sufi, Ash'ari, Shafi'i, Sufi, Ash'ari, Hanbali, Sufi. This is our way. This is Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Naam.
The Key to Paradise, an explanation of the faith of Ahl Sunnah. He gave written authorizations during his lifetime to a number of sheikhs in the past.
Authorizations, ijazah. Authorization, ijazah.
Among them, Abdul Qadir Isa of Aleppo, author of Haqa'i and
Haqa'iq,
Aqa'id
and it tasawwuf.
and Tasawwuf.
Yeah, this is this book in Arabic and the book that we're reading. So this is this book, and this is the Arabic version, Haqa'iq and it tasawwuf, right? Which our teachers encourage us to read, especially as an introduction and knowing the basis of at-tasawwuf, of Sufism. This and another book that our teachers recommended us to read, but this is available in English, so I picked this one to go over. The other book is not available in English. Now,
Facts about Sufism. Muhammad Sa'id Burhani, his immediate successor in Damascus, and Muhammad Sa'id al-Kurdi, who brought the Shadili Tariqa to Jordan. When he died in Damascus in 1961, he left a legacy not only of his writings, but also the illumined hearts of those he had led to Allah Ta'ala, and it was they who, out of regard for the master, renamed the Tariqa the Hashimi Darqawi way after his death.
and among the students of Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi is Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Shaghuri, rahimahullah, who is the sheikh of, among the sheikhs of Nohamin Keller, the author of the book that we're reading from right now, Reliance of the Traveler, that we just read that from. So they are connected back to Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi. And these were great spiritual masters of the Shadhili way. And some of our teachers, they followed that way as well. May Allah have mercy on him. So this is something that has been accepted as the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. So having some background of where we're taking this knowledge, the route from which we're taking this knowledge. Let's read, inshallah, on the next page in our book, Risalatis al-Tasawwuf. This book, what it's about.
This book explains Sufism in light of the correct understanding, drawing from the Quran, the Sunnah, and statements of the notable Imams.
So highlight this point. In this book, Haqa'iq and Tasawwuf, one is going to get a clear understanding of what is Sufism. And we should say, I want you to get too used to the Arabic term, at-tasawwuf. And I want you to add this to it. Just when you think, and I'm going to tell you why. So, at-tasawwuf is the Arabic word for Sufism. But I want, when you say it in your mind, say at-tasawwuf al-Islami, right? Islamic tasawwuf. Because al-mustashrikun, the Orientalists, they put Sufism and make it like some hippie practice, spirituality. So you got Sufism for Buddhists, Sufism for Indians, Hindus, Sufism for atheists, Sufism for all kinds of nonsense. We're not talking about that. We're talking about at-tasawwuf as recognized in the Islamic sciences. That other stuff that they call Sufism, I don't know what it is. And that's a big problem, that many of the enemies of at-tasawwuf, they will point to practices that have nothing to do with Islamic tasawwuf. And because they put the name Sufism on it, the person who's listening and doesn't know thinks that when we say Sufism, we're referring to these crazy practices that have nothing to do with Islamic tasawwuf. And in fact, rejected by Islamic scholars. So in this book, we're going to learn about at-tasawwuf, Sufism, in the light of the correct understanding, how you understand what is tasawwuf, right? And how are we going to know what it is? From verses of the Quran, hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and statements of the great Imams who were masters of this science. So when we talked about Sheikh Muhammad al-Hashimi, we already know that a Sufi who doesn't have the correct creed, who claims to be Sufi, we don't consider them Sufi, who doesn't have the correct creed of the Ash'ariyya Maturidiyya, we don't accept them. The Sufi is Ash'ari or Maturidi. And if he doesn't follow in the Islamic rules, jurisprudence, one of the four schools, we don't accept. He's either going to be Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, or Hanbali. And then tasawwuf, following it in the correct methodology based on the Quran and Sunnah and the way of the early Muslims. And in another way, we can say the tasawwuf of Junaid al-Baghdadi, who was from the Salaf. That's a Sunni who practices at tasawwuf. As for a person who say, I'm a Sufi with bad aqidah, we don't accept. That is not the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Is this point clear? So you have proper belief, proper practice, then correct wayfaring or spiritual traveling the path to Allah. So you have Ash-Sharia, At-Tariqa, and Al-Haqiqa. All three must exist. All righty. So you have a Sharia, the sacred law. There is no Sufism without strict adherence to the sacred law. That's why we follow madhabs. There is no such thing as tasawwuf and you don't follow the sacred law. Doesn't exist. So a non-Muslim can't be a Sufi. It will never happen, right? Because the sacred law has its aspect of the proper belief and the proper practice. Without it, you're not a Sufi, no matter what you call yourself. In the Islamic definition of tasawwuf, a tariqah is actually the spiritual wayfaring, the route to implementing inwardly that which you're doing outwardly. And then if you do both, eventually, with the tawfiq from Allah, you will reach the level of al-haqiqah, where you are exposed to spiritual realities. But there is no haqiqah without the sharia. The way our teacher said, there is no haqiqah without tariqah, there's no tariqah without sharia, period. What it is, when you're missing those, is delusion, al-ghurur, delusion. And you are deluded. So, true tasawwuf, Sufism, is built on the Quran and the Sunnah. Without Quran and Sunnah, strict adherence to the sacred law, there is no such thing as Sufism. So if you see someone says, I'm a Sufi, and they contradict the sacred law of Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they're not a Sufi. I don't mean Sufis don't commit sins. I mean denying the sacred law. I don't mean you commit sins. Some people fall short, right? I don't mean that. They're not ma'soom. They're not impeccable of committing sins. I'm talking about negating the sacred law. That's what I'm talking about. Not falling short in fulfilling the sacred law. I'm talking about negating it. Go ahead.
Clarifies the legislative paths the Sufis traversed to arrive at the station of Ihsan.
So what is the tariqah? What is the way to acquire these spiritual states? Right? And this is the practical way that is according to the Sharia. So how this book's going to clarify the legislative, practical paths which the people of Tasawwuf travel to arrive at the station of Al-Ihsan, right? MashaAllah. Which is, in the hadith of Jibril, we had Al-Islam, Al-Iman, and Al-Ihsan. So this book's going to tell us what is the legislative, practical paths, ways, routes that the people of Sufism, Rijal al-Tasawwuf, that they travel to arrive at that station and ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarahu فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. That station of worship Allah as though you see him, and though you cannot see him, know that he sees you. How do they do that? This book is going to tell you. Naam.
Presents the stations and levels that these spiritual wayfarers travel through to adorn themselves with noble prophetic qualities.
So it also going to tell you, it's going to expose you to things which are called al-maqamat, al-ahwal, or you could say al-ahwal, al-maqamat, al-maratib. These stations and states and levels and ranks, right? That the one who wayfares, which is called a salik, right? Let me put this.
Explains.
Not finished.
Sorry.
So a salik salik, right, is the traveler. So you know we have Reliance of the Traveler, right? The book, right? So as you see, you have Reliance of the Traveler, in Arabic, Umdatu as-Salik. Salik is the traveler. In the terms of Sufism, is the one who is doing as-suluk. As-suluk ilallah. Which means that person is traveling the spiritual path to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. On that spiritual path that wayfarer or that traveler is doing, there are states, right? So I'm giving you a lot of vocabulary. We'll stop here, right? There are states which we call al-ahwal, and al-maqamat. States and stations. Let me say this. I'll say this. States and maqamat, say stations. Right? So, and the last one, al-maratib, I'll explain, right? Stats, ranks and statuses, right? Stations or stages, should I say. So these different states and stations that the wayfarer goes through, right? While traveling the spiritual path, and they basically, as Imam al-Ghazali, consist of two things: at-takhalli and at-tahalli. Right? At-takhalli means to divest, to get rid of. And at-takhalli and as-sifat al-madhmuma. It is divesting from blameworthy characteristics. At-tahalli is to acquire as-sifat al-mahmuda, praiseworthy characteristics, right? So on the spiritual path, that disciple, that murid, that salik, at the hands of that sheikh who is a murshid or murabbi, training that person, is going to take them along this path, which is called as-suluk, through different states and stations where they will divest of all blameworthy characteristics and then adorn themselves with all praiseworthy characteristics sanctioned by the sacred law, the Sharia. Is that clear? And that is a process. All of that is based on al-khuluq al-nabawi al-kareem, right? By the noble prophetic character. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And you are on the highest level of moral character. So, in other words, if you want to know what this book is going to teach you, is how to travel in the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in a systematic, organized, well thought out, well traveled path. That's it. So you're going to learn that. And it is a science like the other sciences of Islam. So it has its own technical terminology, and it has its teachers, and it has its levels, and it has its grades, and it has its ranks. Just like in fiqh, just like in aqidah, just like in hadith, tafsir, Arabic language. It has its own field, its own terminology, its own people, its own notable scholars. It's a separate science among the sciences of Islam. And we'll stop there. What I'm doing here, so let's not try to get deep. We're just laying down foundational things which are agreed across the various spiritual routes, right? So what we're going to learn here is what is tasawwuf and what is a generally accepted practice of tasawwuf and what does that look like? Now, once you know that, after you have a certain amount of knowledge, you'll identify the differences in the way different sheikhs train their murid or their students, because not everything is exactly the same, but the foundations are the same. So if you have any questions and I can help you and I can answer, please don't try to go into deep details because I'm going to tell you I don't know or we'll wait later. I'm not proposing to be no one's sheikh or spiritual guide, nor am I suggesting that you rush into that. Even if you in it, still learn. Don't be a groupie. I don't like groupies at all. I love Muslims, but I hate groupies. Subhanallah. Uh, what about the Authority Creed? I don't subscribe to anything called the Authority Creed. Authority Creed to me is a new fancy word for Wahhabi. I don't accept. If you mean by that, you follow the way of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal truly, fine. And then it's fine, nothing wrong with that. But if it means something else, and when we get into the details of it, you actually a mushabbih or mujassim, and you just change that name to Athari, I don't accept. So it depends. In general, I don't accept. Al-Sunnah al-Ash'ari wal Maturidiyya. If the person's Athari and they have some correct belief that is similar to the Ash'ari and Maturidi, they just change the name, okay. It's not about the name, it's about the correct belief. But as the word authority has been used in our time, I don't accept, nor would I tell someone to follow it. Ash'ari or Maturidi. And what is in the authority, so-called authority creed, is in the Ash'ari and Maturidi creed. You fine. Don't do ta'wil. Okay, great. That's authority to you. We don't do ta'wil. Okay. Ash'aris and Maturidis don't have to do ta'wil. Don't do ta'wil. Do a tafweed. Call it a day. Other than that, it's another fancy term for Wahhabi, and I don't accept. My teachers were strict Ash'aris and Maturidis. That's the way we learned. We're not flip-floppers on these issues. We're not pressured by oil money. That's not us. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I think that those ideas are the worst innovation threatening the sacred law of Islam and our belief. It's my personal feeling, and it was the feeling of my teachers. It is the most dangerous innovation threatening Islam altogether. How does one establish a weird individually? Read Al-Adhkar of Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, and recite those adhkar mentioned there. Let me see if I can help you here. This book here, I would suggest everyone have a copy of this book. Al-Adhkar of Imam al-Nawawi is available. And those adhkar that I mentioned there, follow them. They're from the Prophet ﷺ, and you can't go wrong. And if you get later, you have a teacher who would give you something specific, then do that. But what is in that book, Al Afkar, and we're getting ready to start reading it again. We stopped, but we're getting ready to start on Saturdays again. Uh, so that's what I would suggest. And plenty of salah and salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and reading the Quran. So if you want a weird, plenty of salah and salam on the Prophet, plenty of reading the Quran, and be diligent in performing your obligations and adding the optional deeds. That's the best word for someone who doesn't have a sheikh. The word tasawwuf was used in the time of the Salaf. In the time of the Salaf. And the early scholars are the scholars mentioned in the Risala of Imam al-Kushairi. So in the Risala of Imam al-Kushairi, he mentions all of the early scholars of Tasawwuf, and Tasawwuf was in their time, and they're all from the time of the Salaf. So there's where you will find it all. So here's the book. So this is book Al-Risalatu al-Kushairiyah, which is the treatise, the Risala of Imam al-Kushairi, Abu Qasim al-Kushairi. And in here, in this book, he mentions all of about Tasawwuf and the people of Tasawwuf. So after mentioning, excuse me, first he mentions the Aqidah of the people of Tasawwuf, right? في بيان اعتقاد هذه الطائفة في مسائل الأصول. So explaining the beliefs of this group in the issues of the foundations of the religion. And then after that, he goes into mentioning the في ذكر مشايخ هذه الطريقة, right? Mentioning the sheikhs of this path. All of them, the people, are the people of Tasawwuf, and he mentions them. So in the first two chapters of this book, it is available in English. You will find all you're looking for. The best copy in Arabic that I know of is this copy from Darul Minhaj. So in Arabic, this is the best edition available. There is a new edition coming out. I'm waiting for the book fair in Cairo at the end of this month. There is a commentary coming out on this, a new commentary that they printed that should be very exciting. So that will be coming, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. What is the status of Sheikh Harari, rahimahullah? Was he rightly guided? No question. He was a Sheikh of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. He was Ash'ari, Shafi'i, Rifa'i, and other Turuk as well. No doubt that he was one of the greatest scholars of our era. No doubt about that. No one questions that, except a crazy person, right? No one denies that Sheikh Abdullah al Harari, well known as al Habashi, was one of the greatest living scholars in our time. That's it. I heard that from the mouths of great scholars in our nation who may disagree with individuals who followed him and may disagree with some of his positions. But nevertheless, none of them, from the great scholars of Sham, from the great scholars of Yemen, from the great scholars of Egypt, from the great scholars of Morocco, Pakistan, anyone who knows anything about Islamic knowledge, especially Hadith, will not deny the status and the rank of Sheikh Abdullah al-Harari, rahimahullah ta'ala. As for things they disagree, they disagree. These are human beings, people disagree with them. But for his status, I've never heard a scholar say, oh, he was misguided. I never heard no one say that. They say we disagree with him in this and that. But as for him, he's a great scholar, no doubt. And this what Sheikh Samir just told us this weekend. In his lesson, he specifically mentioned him and he said that. So that's what we learned from our teachers. And our teachers were students of him. So that's my take on it. And fairness is important. If you're fair, you be honest. You don't have to like everything someone does to be just, right? Sometimes we don't like something in a person or we don't like something in a group. We try to attribute it to everything and knock away their good deeds. Can you all write this? This I took from Sheikh Aisha Pram, and it's the best thing I've ever heard as to make hearts settled. She, among our modern times, Sheikh Aisha Pram said one day at Masjid Muhammad, I will never forget it. It is a jewel. She said, all human beings are a combination of vice and virtue. Wow, that's so strong. All human beings, of course, besides the prophets, are a combination of vice and virtue. You're going to find some things you dislike, and you're going to find some things you like. We are human beings. Just because I have some vices, don't take away my virtues. And just because I have virtues, don't forget that I have vices too. I'm a human. I'm a human being. And so was everybody else. I told this is in the time of the Salaf. I pointed you to the book. I don't do microwave Islam. I point you to the book, the Risala of Imam al-Kushairi. Read it. For every one of us. I don't do microwave Islam. I want you to study. Don't just listen to me. I told you where the book, not you, Khadija. I'm talking about in general. I told you where the book is. Go buy it. Go get it. Go do your research. Uh, Question, it might be off the topic. However, what can you say to keep you from seeing demons? That's not my field. I know nothing about it. You should seek someone who knows about demons and dreams. I know nothing about demons and dreams. Unimportant. Read the books. Learn what they agree with first. Read the books, inshallah. Barakallahu bikum. Where can you purchase his books? Let me see if I can help you. Allah. some of the books of Sheikh Abdullah Al-Harari can be purchased here. Not all of them, but some of them. And I don't know if they have Arabic books. They do, they may. His books can be found there. That's one place I know uh, that you can find his books. And I believe personally, some of his books are the most important books that we, especially we as Black folks, we need to study. Especially his book, As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, The Straight Path, which Sheikh Yahya Baltimore is teaching every Thursday on this page. And in general, his book, Muqtasar, the summary, is also needed. Those two books, I wish everyone in here understood well. Just the book. I'm not talking about joining a group. I'm talking about the knowledge. So don't take knowledge and joining a group as two different things. Please, 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 for all of you, I don't call to no group. I call to the knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. No matter who's distributing it, who's giving it out, so long as it's correct knowledge, accept it and take it. You don't have to follow people to learn. You can learn, take the virtue, and leave the vice. That's it. People are virtue and vice. Distinguish between the two, right? That's all you have to do. Y'all follow me? If you don't like someone, listen, some people can't handle my personality. My personality is too strong for some people. That has nothing to do with am I telling you the truth or not. If you don't like my personality, go to Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya, who doesn't have the same personality me. He's much more calm in his approach, and learn from him. Just learn the knowledge. It doesn't matter. You follow my point? Go to Sheikh Yahya Rhodes. Go to Sheikh Yahya Baltimore. Go wherever you need to go that you feel comfortable, that you can deal with the personality. But please learn. Just learn. That's it. Right? That's it. Pantry, go ahead. You can ask whatever you want. That doesn't mean necessarily I'll be able to answer, but you're welcome to ask. Sister Miriam Sharif, we're happy that you reached home safe, and we're happy that all of you, uh, all of you who return home safe, returned home safely. May Allah keep you all. Don't worry. There's plenty of them books. Don't Ayub, don't worry about that book right now. I got you covered. Don't you're not gonna miss out. Don't worry about it. Stick with the book you got. I got you. Don't worry about that book. I got you covered. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to give you some advice, Pentry, and I want everyone to take this advice. Stop watching a bunch of videos all over the place and confusing yourself. Find a teacher that you trust and stick with them until you learn something. There are many, 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 many controversial issues on the internet. You'll be all over the place chasing people's ideas. Stop. Train yourself to stop. You cannot learn your Islam by watching videos on the internet. Find you a teacher and confine yourself until you reach a level that that teacher says you understand, and they know you understand, and then move forward. Otherwise, you're going to be confused. You're going to go from platform to platform, asking this question, asking this one, ask. Stop. Give yourself a break. Right? Are you Braillewy? Are you Dio Bandy? Are you Braillewy or are you Dio Bandy? I'm going to ask you a question, Pentry. Are you Braillewy or Dio Bandy? That's a question. Then I'm asking you a question. Are you Braillewy or Dio Bandy? Which one? So guess what? That conversation has nothing to do with you. That's a Braillewy and Dio Bandy question. It has nothing to do with you. So why are you wasting your time in it? Sheikh Waleed told you yesterday, Allah is not attributed with non-befitting attributes. That's fine. Stop. Why are you trying to solve Dio Bandy and Braillewy fights? It's not your business. You might even know it's a Dio Bandy Braillewy fight. It has nothing to do with you. Allah is clear of non-befitting attributes. That's it. It doesn't matter. That's it. Allah is clear of non-befitting attributes. If the Braillewy and Dio Bandys want to fight over that, let them fight. It has nothing to do with us. Zilch. Do you follow? It has nothing to do with me. I'm not Braillewy or Dio Bandy. I know Allah is clear from non-befitting attributes. That's it. I ain't concerned about your argument. I'm concerned about my problems, and that ain't one of them. Nobody in my neighborhood is talking about, can Allah lie? Is it possible? Is it impossible? They know Allah is clear of non-befitting attributes. We're finished. That's it. You're not a Braillewy. You're not a Dio Bandy. Let them fight. Why are you jumping in their business? Min husn al-Islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. Part of the excellence of someone's Islam is to leave off that which does not concern them. That don't concern you. Leave it alone. It's not my business. Allah is clear of non-befitting attributes. That's my business. If the Braillewy's and the Dio Bandys want to duke it out, let them go duke it out. And keep that stuff in Pakistan and India duking it out. Don't bring it to the inner cities of America. We don't have that problem. I don't mean to be hard, but you keep doing the same thing. Sheikh just told you that yesterday. He just told you the same answer last night, and you'll come right back and ask the same thing. That's why I tell you to stop. He just told you last night. He gave you an answer, and you come back the next day, ask the exact same question. And then when I give you an answer, you're going to go ask some other person the same question. It's was. Leave it alone. That's my advice. I love you for the sake of Allah, and that's why I'm telling you that. Don't do it. No buts. That's final. And I love you. That's why I'm telling you. Not to be hard. You're harming yourself. Stop. You're harming yourself. Stop. You're harming yourself. And you're not a scholar. And you're dealing with scholar stuff that you don't understand. Not your business. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're not mukallaf for that. You're not morally responsible to solve the arguments of scholars. That's not your job. You don't even have the tools. And if you had the tools, you wouldn't be here talking to me. So stop. Stay in your station. And I'm telling you that because I love you, so you don't confuse yourself. I'm not being hard to be hard. I love you, and I don't want you to harm yourself. The basic principles of Islam is sufficient for you. You don't need more than that. You don't need a lot of details. Trust me. And if you learn the basics one day, you'll be able to answer those questions yourself. So that's stuff you don't need to know. It's not your business. Okay, and I love you. Keep that in mind. Even though it may sound a little harsh, I really love you. That's why I'm telling you it, right? It is like my kids keep going to the stove and turning the fire. I'm going to smack their hands after a while. I'm going to tell them, then I'm going to go, pop. don't do that again. Right? Why? Because I don't want them to get burnt. But why is so many people making takfir if it's not? Because people crazy. Because people have vice and virtue. People have vice and virtue. So people making a bunch of takfir because that's one of their vices. Ignore their vices, take their virtues, and leave them the heck alone. Because someone's extreme, don't make it an obligation on me. That's your problem. Go get yourself together, right? That's why people making takfir. They're extreme in some cases, and they have vices, and they're human beings. What that got to do with me? You understand my point? You see, you could do the same thing. Somebody comes to me, they come to me with these issues, man, get out of here with that stuff. It's not my problem. Allah is clear of non-befitting attributes. That's what I know. Your other stuff, beat it. Kick rocks. Go lay down and get a nap. But you only do that when you learn. When you already know what you're supposed to believe, you learn properly from a teacher, you know you don't have to be mixed up in somebody's nonsense. That's your vice, man. That's not my vice. See you. You follow? I'm saying that because I love you. All right, Barakallahu bikum. I extended long. And always be welcome, Pentry. Don't think that I'm just telling you some advice. And even if you come back tomorrow, I'm not going to tell you the same advice, but you always welcome. But you should just learn. And inshallah, after time, you'll understand. Barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Tonight, Black Imams Roundtable, continuous talking about the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Barakallahu bikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.